Here's a rewritten version with more vivid language and emotional depth. If there's one thing I've learned in 58 years, it's that the people you trust the most have the power to wound you the deepest. I thought I had a rock-solid marriage, 20 years with a woman I would have staked my life on. But one day, everything I believed came crashing down. The betrayal didn't come from a stranger or an enemy. It unfolded right under my own roof, in the home we built together. I met Kimberly when I was 30, and she was 20. She was full of life, laughter spilling from her like sunshine, and I was ready to settle down, build a future, put down roots. From the start, we connected effortlessly, talking for hours about everything, our dreams, our past, the kind of life we envisioned. A year into our relationship, I dropped to one knee and asked her to be my wife. Some might say it was too fast, but I had no doubts, no red flags, just the unwavering certainty that she was the one. We married in an intimate ceremony and moved into a house my mother owned. For a while, life felt perfect. We were inseparable, cooking dinner side by side, curled up on the couch watching westerns, planting flowers in the backyard. I was happy, truly happy, and I believed she was too. Looking back, I realize now that the cruelest betrayals often come from those you'd least expect. A decade into our marriage, a seemingly insignificant moment set off the chain reaction that shattered my world. Kimberly started complaining about her phone, how it kept freezing, the battery drained too fast, apps refused to open. Frustrated, she tossed it onto the counter one evening, sighing about how she needed a new one. I, ever the problem solver, offered to handle it for her. "I'll take it to the shop," I said, thinking it would be a quick fix. When the technician examined the phone, he shook his head. Repairing it would cost nearly half the price of a new one. That didn't sit right with me. If I was going to spend that much, I might as well get her an upgrade. So I decided to surprise her with a brand new phone, imagining the joy in her eyes, the same radiant smile I had fallen for all those years ago. But that decision unraveled everything. Before transferring her files, I checked her old phone to ensure everything important was backed up, photos, contacts, the usual. I wasn't prying, just being thorough. Then, something caught my eye. A hidden folder buried deep in the menu, tucked away where no one would casually stumble upon it. A sharp unease curled in my stomach as I opened it. And then, my blood turned to ice. There, buried beneath layers of secrecy, was a dating app. Not a recent download, not a fleeting mistake. A vault of messages stretching back years. My hands trembled as I scrolled, flirty exchanges, playful banter, and messages so explicit I felt sick reading them. Dozens of men. Conversations dating back to before we even said, "I do." She had been entertaining their advances, laughing at their jokes, slipping into a world where our marriage didn't exist. I gripped the phone tighter, my pulse pounding in my ears. Every memory, every moment I had cherished, suddenly felt tainted. The late nights she blamed on work. The sudden habit of locking her phone. The vague explanations that never quite added up. I had brushed off those doubts because I loved her, because I wanted to believe she valued what we had as much as I did. But now, the truth lay in my hands. She never did. Determined not to let my emotions dictate my next move, I took screenshots, names, dates, every damning message. If she tried to lie her way out of this, I would have the proof. When the technician finished transferring her data, I handed him the phone, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Go ahead," I said. I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying every moment of our marriage, dissecting it for clues I had missed. Had she always been this way? Had I been nothing more than a fool, blinded by love and devotion? When I walked through the door, I found her in the kitchen. With a forced smile, I handed her the sleek, new phone. Her eyes lit up, and she threw her arms around me, pressing a kiss to my cheek. "Oh my God, babe, you didn't have to do this." Her excitement was pure, untainted. She had no idea what was coming. I let her bask in the moment for a few precious seconds. Then I cleared my throat. "I figured it was better than fixing the old one," I said, my voice calm but sharp. "By the way, I looked through your phone before the transfer." Her smile faltered. The warmth in her eyes flickered, replaced by something colder. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice suddenly cautious. I held her gaze. I saw the dating app, Kimberly. She stared at me for a moment, silent, calculating. Then, with a scoff, she crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes. "You went through my phone," she said, her voice laced with indignation. "That's an invasion of privacy. Gary, do you not trust me?" I expected that. The classic deflection, turning the blame on me instead of facing what she had done. But I wasn't playing her game. "That's not the point," I said, my voice steady, unwavering. "I want to know why you're on a dating app talking to other men." Her expression shifted. A flicker of something, guilt, maybe, before she dropped her gaze. "Look, it wasn't serious," she muttered, running a hand through her hair. "I was just bored, I guess. I never planned to meet anyone." I took a slow, deep breath, struggling to contain the anger clawing its way up my throat. "Do you have any idea how messed up that is?" I asked, my voice low but sharp. "Giving attention to someone outside our marriage, that's how things fall apart. I don't want that for us, Kim." She looked up, and for a brief second, there was something raw in her eyes. But then, just as quickly, she looked away. "Fine," she sighed. "I'll delete it." Right there, in front of me, she grabbed her phone and uninstalled the app, her fingers moving fast as if that alone could erase what she had done. I watched her, but deep in my gut, I knew this wasn't the end. I wanted to believe her. I really did. So I told her, "Cut off every guy you've been talking to. I need to know this won't happen again." She nodded, promising she would stop. And for the next 8 months, I tried to move on. Every time I thought about those messages, I forced myself to let it go. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband, the one who couldn't trust his wife. I told myself that relationships needed trust, that if I kept doubting her, I would push her away. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. The signs were still there. Late nights she couldn't explain, a guardedness in her eyes when her phone buzzed, that slight hesitation before answering certain calls. But I ignored them, convincing myself I was overthinking. Then one morning, my body told me what my heart had refused to accept. I woke up feeling off, an uncomfortable, stinging sensation that sent a sharp jolt of pain through me every time I went to the bathroom. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I ate something bad. Maybe it was just a fluke. But by evening, the pain had worsened. A deep, relentless burn that made every movement unbearable. And then I saw it, a thick, yellowish discharge. I stood frozen, staring at my reflection in the mirror, my pulse hammering in my ears. No, it wasn't just some infection. My body was screaming the truth. I had an STD. The realization hit like a wrecking ball. I hadn't been with anyone else. Not in 20 years. There was only one possible explanation. Kimberly had slept with someone else. The next morning, I drove straight to the hospital, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The entire time, I kept hoping for another explanation, some medical loophole that could make sense of this. A urinary tract infection? A fluke test result? Anything but the truth I already knew. After the examination, the doctor sat across from me, his expression unreadable. "You have an STD," he said simply. "This type of infection is only transmitted through sexual contact." I stared at him, waiting for him to say something else, waiting for an alternative that would never come. But that was it. There was no way around it. Kimberly had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I walked out of the hospital in a daze, the doctor's words echoing in my head. I had given this woman my faithfulness, my loyalty, 2 decades of my life, and this was what I got in return. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while my mind raced. Every late night, every work meeting, every time she laughed off my questions or brushed aside my concerns. I thought about the dating app, the messages, the empty promises. She had never stopped. She had just gotten better at hiding it. The next morning, I woke up before her, my decision already made. I moved through the house in silence, pouring myself a cup of coffee and settling into my seat, waiting. When she finally walked in, she stretched, yawned, and leaned down to kiss my cheek as if everything were normal. I had to fight every instinct not to push her away. She poured herself a cup, sat across from me, took a sip, and then I met her gaze, my voice calm but cold. "Kim," I said, my eyes locked onto hers. "Have you been with anyone else?" Her expression twisted instantly, shifting into a glare like I had just insulted her. "Excuse me? What kind of question is that?" She slammed her cup onto the table, her eyes blazing with fury. "A simple one," I repeated, my voice calm but firm. "Have you been with another man?" She leaned back, crossing her arms, her expression shifting from anger to disbelief. "I can't believe this," she scoffed. "Are you seriously accusing me of cheating? After everything we've been through?" I didn't flinch. "Did you cut off the guys from that dating app like you promised?" And that was when she snapped. "Oh my God, are you bringing that up again? I told you, I deleted everything." Her voice rose, frustration dripping from every word. "Do you know how exhausting it is to be with someone who doesn't trust you? This is ridiculous. Gary." I let her vent, let her throw her tantrum. Then, keeping my voice level, I said, "Then hand me your phone." She recoiled instantly, clutching it to her chest as if I had asked for her lifeline. "No," she spat. "That's an invasion of privacy." I leaned forward, my eyes never leaving hers. "All right then," I said. "Let's go to the hospital and get tested together." She froze. Just for a split second, her face went pale before she quickly masked it with defiance. "I don't have to prove anything to you," she snapped. And that was all I needed to hear. I exhaled, pretending to back off, letting my shoulders relax like I was giving up. She turned her head, and in that moment of distraction, I lunged across the table. My hand closed around her phone, and before she could react, I pressed it against her face, unlocking the screen in an instant. She screamed, her fury turning to panic, but it was too late. The screen lit up, and there it was, everything I had feared. Messages, photos, receipts, conversations with multiple men, some as recent as last week, explicit texts, plans to meet up. "I miss you." She hadn't stopped. Not after I confronted her. Not after she promised. Not after she saw how much it hurt me. She had been lying to my face for months. Maybe even years. I turned to her, my voice eerily calm. "How could you be this unfaithful?" She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She didn't even look ashamed. Instead, she scoffed, met my gaze, and raised her middle finger right to my face. And that was the moment something inside me snapped. "Pack your stuff," I said, my voice cold as steel. "This marriage is over. I want you gone before I get back." She smirked, like she thought I was bluffing. But I didn't wait for her to test me. I grabbed my keys, walked out the door, and drove straight to a buddy's house a few blocks away. My hands trembled as I pulled over, picked up my phone, and called my lawyer. "Find me the best divorce attorney in town," I said. "I want this done fast." By the time I reached my parents' house, I knew I wasn't going back. Not ever. They let me in, confusion on their faces as they asked why I was there so early. But I couldn't bring myself to tell them the whole story. Not yet. 2 days later, I went back to the house. It was empty. She was gone. It didn't take long to find out where she had gone, straight into another man's place. One of the guys she'd been sneaking around with for God knows how long. That burned in a way I can't even describe, knowing she had a backup plan all along. The divorce was hell. People make it sound like it's just paperwork, but it's not. It's untangling every piece of the life you built together. Every memory, every sacrifice, every dream of growing old side by side. It's waking up and realizing the woman you loved was never really yours. The pain was brutal, worse than anything I had ever felt, because I had given her everything. My heart, my loyalty, my future, and she had given me nothing but lies in return. But I got through it. The lawyer I hired was a shark. He made sure I kept the house, the shop, everything I had worked for. Kimberly didn't get a dime. And last I heard, she's still chasing that guy, living in some rundown apartment, trying to hold on to whatever she thinks she won. Me? I'm doing better than ever. The shop is busier than it's been in years. Word got around town, and folks started bringing me more work, saying they respect a man who stands his ground. My boys checking on me every week, and I got good friends who had my back through it all. I even started fishing again down at the lake, something I hadn't done since the kids were little. And you know what? I sleep just fine at night now. No regrets. No looking back. Here's what I learned. Fellas, and I want you to hear this loud and clear. First, never love blindly. Love needs trust. But trust is to be owned, not handed out like candy. I trusted Kimberly because I wanted to believe in her, not because she deserved it. That was my mistake. Second, if someone disrespects you once, they'll do it again. I caught her with that dating app and let her talk me into staying. That was the moment I should have walked away. Third, trust actions, not words. She swore she'd stop, but her actions told the real story. And finally, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Don't wait for more red flags to pile up. I'm sharing this story because I know there's a man out there who needs to hear it. If you're ignoring the signs, if your gut is telling you something's off but you're making excuses for her, stop. Protect your heart. Protect your future. And if you've been through something like this, drop your story in the comments. I want to hear how you handle betrayal. I'll pick one to share next week, so make it real. Hit that subscribe button and check out the video next to this one. There's more truth waiting. And trust me, men need to hear it.